Hello and welcome back to the channel. I know that incorporating non-yarn items into our crocheted clothing can be a little intimidating. Personally, I've incorporated elastic into a lot of my designs, and I know that I get customer feedback that they're afraid to try it. And I'm going to demystify it today and show you how easy adding elastic to your crocheted clothing really is. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to incorporate two different types of elastic in a bunch of different ways. And some of these ways you'll be able to use on any crocheted garment, even ones that you've already finished. This can be really great if you have a piece that is starting to stretch on you, especially with waist shaping. But it can also come in handy for necklines, armholes, cuffs, and hems. Let's get started. First, let's look at thin elastic cording. I'm using 0.5 millimeter here, but I actually recommend using a 1 millimeter cord. It's a little more secure. You can find this in any craft store in the beading section. I cut it to the length that I want for whatever I'm elasticizing. So for this example, I cut it to my waist measurement. Then I'm just going to hold it and stitch over top of it as I go, capturing that elastic underneath my stitches, just like that. While doing this, make sure that you're leaving a good tail of elastic behind so that you don't accidentally pull it through like I did when I was doing this. Right there. Oops. Anyways, once you get all the way around, you have two loose elastic ends, knot them together and weave in those ends to finish it off. You can see it elasticized that portion of the fabric and pulled it in a little bit. Next, you can also do this with a piece that's already finished using a darning needle. Thread the needle and then run the needle through your stitches in the same place that the elastic was when you worked your stitches over top, like this. Right through the center of the stitch there, so you can't see it on either side. Through the center of those stitches all the way around. I also recommend using an elastic that either matches your yarn or your skin tone to make it a little less visible. For this example, I'm using black on a very light color so that you can see it better. For an elasticized waist, I recommend doing this in at least 2 rounds, if not 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how much structure you're looking for in that waist. Nice and stretchy. Here you can see what the elastic looks like, and this is why I recommend using a color that matches a little bit better. You can also use this technique for ribbing or something that's worked side to side or something that you want to elasticize across rows rather than with rows. So for this, you're working on the inside, the wrong side of your piece, and you're going to just snag the outer edges of the stitches all the way around, like so. Let me focus that for you. There we go. So on the inside, you can see the elastic, but on the outside, you cannot because you're only snagging just the outer edges of those stitches all the way around. And just like for the previous example, when you have those two loose ends at the end, you knot them together to secure them and weave in those ends. Repeat as many times as needed. Another way you can use this thin elastic cording while you're stitching is to actually hold it with your yarn and work it right into each and every stitch. Now, this is going to show a lot more than the others, so maybe that's the look you're going for, or maybe you're able to find an elastic that matches your yarn exactly and you can't really see it. I wouldn't recommend doing this for an entire piece, but let's say you're working in the waist area, maybe you do 2 to 5 rounds holding the elastic like this. I don't recommend using a cut piece of elastic like I am in this demonstration because it is going to use substantially more elastic to get around your waist when you're working it into the stitches like this. It does make it real stretchy though. Next up is my favorite, a 3/4 inch or 1 inch elastic. This is going to give you tons of security in a waistband, but you are going to need to use a needle and thread to seam those ends together. For a waist, I recommend cutting your elastic to 1 inch less than your waist measurement or the measurement of the place you want the waistband to sit, and then overlap it by a 1/2 inch and seam it together. Sewing friends, do not judge my stitching here. I am not a sewist. I'm just weaving this sucker in and out as many times as I can to hopefully make it secure. I don't know. Really stretchy, really secure. We love to see it. Now, this is my favorite way to make a waistband, a double brim waistband. You create a length of fabric that will fold in half that the elastic can fit inside of. And then you stitch across the tops of your stitches and the bottom of the foundation of your piece to encapsulate the elastic, like this. You can turn your piece or not, depending on the design. It's up to you, but no matter what, you're going to want to do the number of turning chains that you need, and then you're going to work through the top of the stitch closest to you and the top of the stitch or the bottom of the foundation stitch on the other side, pinching that elastic band in the middle. Keep stitching like that all the way around, grabbing that elastic in the center, and you'll end up with this dreamy waistband. Super stretchy, super soft against your skin because the elastic isn't up against your skin. It's my favorite for a reason. This style of waistband works really great for bottoms like skirts, pants, and shorts because then you're just working off the one end. It doesn't work so great for things like a dress because the stitches are only on one side of this waistband. This double brim waistband also works for a waistband that is worked side to side, like with ribbing. You just make the ribbing wide enough to fit the elastic inside. And when you're enclosing the elastic, rather than working through the tops of the stitches and the bottom of the foundation round, you are now working through the sides of the rows. Side of the row from the side closest to you, side of the row from the fabric that's further away, pinching that elastic in the middle. And you just do that all the way around again and get the same result. The newest way I discovered to incorporate elastic into a waistband of a dress, which is in my Maddie dress, which is coming out next week, is to work the first round of the waistband in the back loops only. That's what I'm doing here. Back loops only, leaving those front loops unworked. You'll come back to those later. Work all the way around in those back loops only, and then join with a slip stitch in the round. Do your turning chains, turn if required by the pattern, and then the next round, work as normal through both loops of the stitches all the way around. Then you're going to repeat that round where you're working through both loops as many times as needed to reach the height of your elastic. From that back, the bottom of that back loops only round to the top of the last round needs to be slightly higher than the height of your elastic. For me, this is a total of 4 rounds. I'm going to grab my elastic and just double check that what I've created is tall enough before I fasten off. Measure twice, cut once. It's tall enough, it covers the whole elastic, so I fasten off. Then we're going to go back and work through those front loops only now. Pick up your hook and your yarn and attach to that first stitch where you left that front loop. I find it really helpful to fold the fabric while I'm working in the front loops. It kind of causes the front loops to like pop out at you, become very obvious. See how I folded it right along the front loop line there? Chef's kiss, makes it so easy. Then, just like for the other section, you're going to do as many rounds as needed to reach that same height where you're working through both of the loops. So for me, I've got 4 rounds on the back loops only side and then 4 rounds on the front loops only side. Essentially, what I've done here is created a pocket for the elastic to slide into. You can just tuck those ends in there with the elastic. You won't even notice them. So you pop the elastic into that slot that you just made for it. And then just like for the double brim, you are going to work your stitches through both layers of that fabric. All right, so I've got that elastic sitting in that little pocket for it, at least at the spot where I'm working. It's hard to keep it in the slot all the way around at the start. And I'm going to stitch through both sides of the fabric, through both loops. Both. Pulls those 2 pieces of fabric together and pinches the elastic inside. And just repeat that all the way around. Here's what it looks like at the end. See, the elastic is hiding in there. Love it. And then you just join with a slip stitch and carry on with the rest of your project. Now let's look at how to add this thick elastic if your project is already done. Tricky. This is great for if you have something that is stretching out on you. You can use a darning needle or a crochet hook. I'll show you how to use the crochet hook first. So get your elastic to the right size, pop it over the area that you want to elasticize, and grab your yarn and attach it somewhere either right below or right above the elastic. Making sure just to snag the outer edge of the stitch. Then you're going to chain the number of chains it takes to be slightly taller or wider than the elastic. For me, that's 5 chains. And then slip stitch slightly over and above the elastic on the other side, like that. Repeat the same number of chains. Again, for me, it's a chain 5. And then this time you're going to slip stitch slightly further over again, but below the elastic band, trapping it in. And you just repeat this process all the way around the waistband or the hem or whatever area you're working. This also works for something where the stitches are top down. You just insert your hook as if you were going to do a post stitch and attach your yarn that way. And again, create your 5 chains or however many you need. And then slip stitch on the opposite side of the elastic, about a 1/2 inch or 1 centimeter further over, zigzagging all the way around. You can also do this with a darning needle or yarn needle and your yarn. Thread that needle and follow the same process as you just did. Attach the yarn somewhere either slightly below or slightly above the elastic. Cross over the elastic and slightly further along your waistband, like right about there. And then cross down below the waistband and slightly further over, zigzagging back and forth over the elastic around the entire waistband. You can also do this with something that's worked top down. Just attach your yarn either slightly above or slightly below the elastic and zigzag your yarn, attaching it slightly further over every time and alternating above and below the full circumference of the elastic. And that's it. Those are all the ways that I know of to add elastic to your pieces, whether that's while you're working them or after they're finished. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe for future educational crochet content. Happy crocheting, everyone. See you again soon.